A clarification point today, I am going to be talking about only mainland China. I'm not going to be talking about Taiwan. I'm not going to be talking about Hong Kong. Some of you are probably thinking, well, why are you saying that? Because all the drywall comes from China, and so who cares about Hong Kong and Taiwan? And my answer to that is probably all the drywall was made in China, but it would not surprise me a bit if a lot of it was actually manufactured, or the owners of the manufacturing facilities in China actually are from Hong Kong or Taiwan. But I'm limiting my talk today to just China. At lunch, very pleasant lunch, a lawyer I was talking with kept asking me, she said, I need the answer to the big question. And the big question is, are we going to get any money from these Chinese companies? And my answer was, no, you're not. But before everybody leaves, I think it's a little more nuanced than that, and there are also some other issues beyond just collecting from the Chinese companies. With respect to that issue, the first question that I think that is the exact right question to ask. And the reason I think it's the right question to ask is because my firm has dealt with law firms that have sued Chinese companies and litigated against Chinese companies and spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars doing so, and then they contact us and say, now that we've won, we'd like to hire you to collect on this judgment from China, take it over there and enforce it. And we have to say, no, it doesn't work that way. So it really is a question that needs to be addressed at the beginning. A couple years ago during the pet food scandal, or cases, there was a lawyer who was getting a lot of press, and he was talking about how he was going to make the Chinese companies pay, and he was going to sue them for this, and he was going to sue them for that. And he was based in a town very near where my daughter was attending college, so I called him up because I thought maybe we should talk, and I asked him how he was planning on collecting. And I thought maybe he had some theories to collect, and his answer was, I'm going to worry about that after we get the judgment. Well, you can't do that unless you don't care whether you're going to collect or not. The reality is Chinese courts do not enforce U.S. judgments. They do not. There's no international treaty, there's no bilateral treaty. No one's ever heard of a Chinese court enforcing a U.S. judgment. They don't like U.S. courts. They don't even really like the U.S. They're not going to enforce the judgment. So forget about that. Now, Chinese courts, however, will enforce a U.S. arbitration award, they'll enforce a Canadian arbitration award, they'll enforce a Hong Kong arbitration award. So I don't know how relevant arbitration is to these drywall cases, but it might be. So for instance, if you've got an importer that has, if you're representing an importer that has a contract with a Chinese manufacturer that calls for arbitrating disputes in Milwaukee, that's not so bad, because there's an international treaty. It's the New York Convention, I think from 1959. It's very old. Maybe it's not 1959, because I was going to say there are about 159 countries that have signed on to it. And if you read the list, you'd be hard-pressed to even notice a country that's not on there, because virtually every major country is on there, and China's one of them. So if you're going to be pursuing a Chinese company and your client has a contract that calls for arbitration, then go ahead and arbitrate, because if you win, then you can take that arbitration award to a Chinese court and you can enforce it. Now, there are definitely some limitations, and one of the most important ones is that, and it's the one that is most often missed, is that it cannot be an ad hoc arbitration. I'm coming from Seattle. Mediation and arbitration